G8 Education is a childcare operator. It operates about 500 centres around Australia. It's really been hit hard by COVID because parents have pulled children out of childcare. If you rewind 3 or 4 years ago, G8 was a high-flying stock. It had rolled up a number of childcare operators, paid inordinate amounts of money to build new centres around the place and buy up more operators. It was a very well-loved stock. In the last 2 years, there's been oversupply, and occupancy has fallen, and G8 has suffered with that. COVID has brought all sorts of new challenges, but even at today's occupancy rate, which is around 69%, much lower than it has been in the past, it should generate about $70 million of EBIT, absent any government subsidies. And we think that presents good value relative to the market as a whole, because in the fullness of time, that 69% occupancy rate is probably going to be too low. And so we think there's reasonable value to be seen there. I think it really is about forward earnings. So if we step back and say, how bad could things get? Well, occupancy of around 62% is probably where they break even. We're above that at the moment, so the balance sheet should be okay from here. And so then the question is, how high should occupancy be? Given we're at 69% today in the midst of lockdowns, etc., we think occupancy will probably trend higher in the future, although there are risks. There are risks around unemployment, which could cause issues for G8 in the short term. A 69% occupancy rate, mind you, is not a healthy occupancy rate for most operators around the country. And the market has basically said this is about as good as it gets. And we think there's a risk that it could be quite a bit better than that in a few years' time. When JobKeeper ends, parents will have to make a deliberate choice about whether to keep kids in childcare or keep them at home. And I think that will put downward pressure on occupancy, at least in the short term, while unemployment is higher than it normally is. And so there are risks here, but we think in the fullness of time, the profits will come through.